Next is a story from Roseville, Minnesota. Sound cold? It was, but things warmed up in a hurry. The first settlers arrived in 1843, and Rose Township was established in 1850. The township saw rapid growth throughout the 1930s and 40s, and incorporated as a village in 1948 using the name Roseville. Roseville is also the location of the very first Target store, built in 1962.
Ron Christensen grew up, actually born in South Dakota in a town called Sisseton, South Dakota. Lived there for until I was about 5. And then our family moved to Moorhead, Minnesota. Lived there for about 5 years, and that was my introduction to what my brothers really loved, and that was automobiles and motorcycles. I'm the 5th oldest, but I'm within 6 years of the oldest brother. So there was actually 5 of us within about 6 years of each other. So that means that I was really involved. Well, I involved myself. I mean, I was always there looking at things, and I was actually following things around. So, and my oldest brother is Larry, and he's the one that really started off the family. He always had a brand new car around. It was always a high-performance car. It was a high-performance motorcycle. It was usually a British bike, but he always had the fastest car in town. At least he told us he had the fastest car in town. And the bond from Larry and I was extremely close because I took a real interest in him and his lifestyle and his love of cars. And so as soon as I got my motorcycle license, I wanted to show him that. And I went out and I found myself a $100 Cushman. No, Vespa. I'm sorry, it was a Vespa. I pretended it was a Cushman, but it was a Vespa. And he thought it was pretty cool, but he thought he'd be one up on me, and he showed me his new BSA. That was probably 1966. He bought a BSA Lightning. And I'd never ridden on the back of a motorcycle. I'd never ridden a motorcycle until I was riding my little Vespa. And he took me for a ride on his BSA Lightning in 1966. And I have never been so scared in my life because when you ride a motorcycle, especially me, I've got to be in control. Riding on the back, just holding on and having your brother trying to scare you, and he did a heck of a job of it. Larry was also an avid hunter. And in the mid-'70s, he was on a hunting trip up north. There was a massive rainstorm. There was a big washout in the road. And Larry wasn't driving, but the guide was. And he knew a shortcut, he thought, because they had roads all blocked off. And he went around a barrier and hit a washed-out stream, bridge. The bridge was out, and he was killed almost immediately in that car accident. After that point, all of his high-performance cars and motorcycles got sold. I got one of them. I got his old Bronco. About a year and a half ago, one of the motorcycle shops in town called me and said, Ron, we got a bike that you might want to come and look at. And of course, I hear that a lot. And I says, yeah, well, no, I think you really need to come out and look at this. It's a blue BSA Lightning. And you might have some interest in it. I says, okay. So I started thinking, blue BSA Lightning. So I drove out to this shop, and I'm looking at it, and it sure looked familiar to me. And I asked the guy, I said, where'd this bike come from? Well, a guy just traded it in last week on a Harley Davidson. I didn't pay a lot of attention to it until he told me where he got it. He got it from a friend of his who had died a long time ago, and it was a good friend of his. And I started putting two and two together, and I looked at the registration, and the same last name was a prior owner of it, Christensen. I looked it up. It was Larry D. Christensen, so I thought of you. And I don't know if there was more than one in town or he had more than one bike, so recognize the bike? I said, this is a 66 BSA Lightning that he bought brand new. Prior to that, he had the Norton, but didn't like it. But he loved his new BSA Lightning. And this is the one that really introduced me to motorcycles, because I did have, my actual friends had Yamaha 175s, and they were dirt bike guys. But this is a road bike, and it was a Lightning. And I remember riding on the back of that thing, of course, and he says, well, it should go back to you. Here's my price. I paid it, took it home. And it sits right alongside of his 64 Ford now, and it's a couple of great, great memories. It had been sitting for many years, been sitting for about 15 years, not started or anything. So I sent it off to a shop in town here. They went through the carburetors, they put a new seat on it because it was all cracked. The mufflers were all gone off it. But it's basically just the way Larry left it back in the mid-'70s, except it's got a newer seat on it and mufflers. And they were Triumph mufflers. I didn't remember this, but he liked the sound of the Triumph over the BSA mufflers, I guess, or something. So it's back just the way that he left it in the mid-'70s, and now it's back home with me. And I've got a car of his, I've got a motorcycle of his, but it's pretty cool.
A great story with a better ending. Thank you for sharing, Ron. And remember, if you have a motorcycle story to tell, we're listening.